Welcome to Are You Real? Finding the Authentic You, the podcast that focuses on Christians that are active in everyday life. Join in as we speak to everyone from successful business owners to educators to athletes about their faith and how it helps them reach out and revolutionize those around them to do the same. And now get ready to roar with your host, the voice of manifestation, John Fuller.
Hey, Roar Nation, John Fuller here, and I am really excited for today's special guest. Reason being, I haven't even told our guests this yet, but I have been following this movement for almost 20 years. I could be off by a year or so. But that being said, what's exciting about what's going on is passion, and it's passion for Jesus. And if you're new to the passion conferences or movement, I highly recommend you check them out and what's going on. But that being said, today's special guest is Kristian Stanfill. Kristian, you ready to rock this thing, my friend?
Ready to rock, man.
Come on, let's do this.
Ready to rock. Let's do it. That's cool to hear you've been tracking with passion for that long.
Yeah, we'll go into that even some more. So our guests kind of have an idea, and I'm just going to do you a quick bio. I stole this off of Wikipedia, Kristian, so this is just what you're going to get, my friend. If you don't like it, you're going to have to get on Wikipedia, buddy. But so Roar Nation, if you're not familiar with Kristian, and as we move forward, you're going to go, oh, I know who that is. But that being said, he is a singer and songwriter, and he's a worship leader from Atlanta, Georgia. And his album, Mountains Move, in 2011 reached number 64 on the Billboard 200, which is a huge deal. He is currently the worship pastor at Passion City Church and the worship leader at Passion Conferences. So, Kristian, I haven't even scratched the surface, dude, of how awesome God's been doing stuff in your life. So, that being said, brother, why don't you tell us more about like you and who you are and what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, day to day, I'm actually at Passion City Church right now, and that's sort of my day to day, which is amazing to be a part of the team here, to be a part of building the church. My wife and I, we've been a part of the church since it started a little over 9 years ago, and it has been the greatest journey. It's been an incredible season of life for us to see all that God's been doing in our city, in our church, and in people's lives. So that's kind of the day-to-day thing for us. And then, like you said, passion. So we got Passion City Church, all these, different arms of one movement, kind of all a part of one movement and ministry, all led by kind of the same team. So yeah, that's kind of it. Like I said, I'm married, I have 3 kids, or 4 kids, sorry, 3 kids.
Man, you're at
We were talking about my 3 girls earlier, and so I had 3 on the brain, but I've got 4 kids. I've got my son, my oldest, and then I have 3 girls. Yeah, man, we're just living life here in Atlanta, and really just grateful.
I'm going to bounce around my questions, which I always do anyway, and I'm just curious, what started the whole passion? And let me give you a little background history of what happened. So this is a fun interview for me, of just because I'm going back when I first got saved. So
that's cool.
So in 97, I go to college, meet my wife, get saved, really dedicated to my Lord. I mean, I knew Jesus, but there's just a difference. I mean, I was surrendered. Mm-hmm. I was all in. So all I listened to was secular music forever. I had a Jars of Clay CD. That's how far back we're going.
Oh, yeah, man.
Flood.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But I just remember I was like, the Lord at the time spoke to me and told me to get rid of all my secular music because I needed to cleanse my mind. And I'm not saying that's for everybody. And I always throw that out there because everybody has a different walk. But I was like, dude, there's no good music out there. I was really frustrated. I'm like, Jesus, you told me to throw away all my music and there's nothing out there. Yeah. And somebody hands me this Passion CD. And I'm like, oh, that's cool, whatever. What is it? And I put it in, and brother, I got like rocked in the spirit.
Yeah.
I mean, floored, dude.
That is awesome.
And it just, it literally changed my whole perspective of Christian music, of worship music. And honestly, what you guys are about is passion. So yeah, I would love for you to dive into that and some of the backdrop and the history of that, because for me, it means something. For you guys, it's your roots. And for those who don't know anything about it, you need to know about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really cool. 97 was the first year that Passion ever gathered in Austin, Texas. And it was the very first gathering of Passion. That was, now over 21 years ago. So that's like, you were at the very beginning, man. That's incredible. I had a similar experience when I was in high school. I guess it would have been 99. Passion 99 had just happened. I'd had a friend who came back, and he said, man, you need to know about this movement that's starting. And I think you would really be impacted by these songs. And I was starting to lead worship in my high school. And so he gave me a copy of Passion 99, Better Is One Day. And the same thing happened to me, man. I put it on, and the power of God coming through those songs, it was unlike anything I had experienced before. And I had listened to worship music and tracked with, things that were happening as I was leading in my youth group at the time, but I had never heard anything like this before. And it wasn't just the sounds, it was the spirit on the project, it was the hand of God on it. And it really impacted me. And honestly, it changed our youth ministry. It radically changed the way we worshiped God. And we saw incredible things start to happen in this little church. I mean, it was actually a big church, but it was a little student ministry in Marietta, Georgia. We started to see God do amazing things. And the spark that lit that was somebody giving me that Passion CD. And so we have similar stories in that way.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm real curious because we're all about people finding their passion in their journey in life. Would you dive a little bit, go back maybe to high school or kind of your start for songwriting and singing and doing your stuff, just some of your path?
Yeah. Well, I grew up really loving music. So I didn't really start playing music or writing songs until I was about 13 or 14 years old. But all growing up, my dad is a huge music lover, and he has great taste in music. And so he was playing all this amazing music, just pumping through the house all the time, like U2, Billy Joel, James Taylor, Keith Green was an early influence. Good
stuff, man.
Yeah, man. Bro, I'll never forget when I first heard With or Without You by U2, I was just done. Like, it doesn't get any better than that. And to be honest, every song I write, I'm really just trying to write With or Without You.
You're just hoping for one of those moments type deal?
I'm just like, if I can capture that emotion and that raw, like, intensity, that's what I want. But then, when I was 13 years old is when I really handed my life over to Jesus and said, I want you to have control of everything. And so my love for Jesus and love for music kind of converged all in one season of life. And I picked up the guitar and just started trying to figure out how to play and write songs. And honestly, man, it just started in my bedroom, just kind of banging away at it, trying to learn how. But it really started as just a way for me to express my love for God. And it was really private, and I'm really grateful it was, because it was really bad. But it wasn't, I didn't know I was really headed toward anything. It just was the natural progression of my life as I was falling in love with Jesus. Now this new gift of music was starting to work itself out in me, and the natural thing for me to do is just to start singing to God and start writing songs of worship to God. And so that's kind of how it started. And then, like I said, I was a part of an amazing church. I had a great youth pastor who really came alongside me and helped me understand what it means to be a worship leader and what it means to walk with God. And he was really patient with me, and I'm really grateful for that. But that was a really great place for me to kind of cut my teeth and learn away from a big spotlight, just the stewardship that is being a worship leader.
I'm going to take a moment for our sponsor real quick, but I got some questions. I want to dive back into that. Okay, so Kristian, you mentioned you hit a awesome word and you didn't even realize it, but you said the word steward. Mm-hmm. And I think so many people miss that part that I've seen so many times in church that people's gifts get ahead of their character. Or in different things, or they're not even necessarily good stewards. But you said you steward your gift. Can you tell me how you stewarded that? Because I think that is so important. I just had this conversation yesterday with a friend of mine about the life and the story of Joseph. Mm-hmm. And man, he went through a lot of hard times, but you'll see all through Joseph's life in that story that he used his gift and he stewarded it well. He served his masters, and the different things that he did them well.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, a lot of people don't realize what he had to go through to get to where he ended. And I kind of see you like that as well. And I don't mean to prop you up, but I'm trying to be real here that, you know, a lot of people will look at your life right now and say, wow, look what he's done. But you said your journey started in your bedroom, in your closet.
Right.
And you stewarded that. Would you dive into that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I really would have even said it like that back then. I was just doing what I knew to do. And when that youth pastor came, you know, into my life, that's when I really started to understand that when God gives you a gift or he anoints you and calls you out to do something, there is a stewardship, or you want to be faithful with that and you want to handle it carefully. And so that's really when I started to understand that maybe God has put his hand on me to do this with my life. And that's when I really started to take it seriously and I want to get a lot better as a singer, as a guitar player, as a songwriter. Then honestly, man, the way that you cultivate that stewardship and you keep a right view of your gifting or your anointing, I think the way that you keep it in right view is just loving Jesus and walking with Jesus. Because when you're seeing Jesus, everything else gets put in its right place, you know. When Jesus is in that center place of focus, all the other parts of life fall where they need to fall, you know. Right. And it's hard. It's really hard for somebody who's really seeing and walking with God to get all puffed up, you know, like you said. And then, you know, honestly, as I've gotten, you know, older in life, I just turned 35 yesterday. So that feels like a very mature age. I don't know. I feel like it's really close to 40.
Dude, I every time I think of it, I'm like, I'm almost 40. I don't know what that is.
How old are you?
I'm going to be 40. I guess I'm going to be 40 this year. I keep saying I'm going to be this year. 39, okay. But my wife keeps informing me that I'm going on 40.
Well, I'm not afraid of it. I just you know, I was 30, then I was 33 and 34, and it all felt like early 30s. Now I'm like, I'm like right in the middle of this decade here. How did that happen?
That's funny.
Anyway, but the older I've gotten, the more I've realized that being in a local church, being a part of something that's bigger than yourself, being on a team of people that are linked arms and running together, that is a really grounding thing. And if you ever get untethered from a community, or if you're ever not anchored into a church community, that can be a really dangerous place to live, because you get blown by every wind and you kind of get taken here and you get taken there, and you don't really have any pastoral leadership or close accountability in your life. That's when I think you can lose that focus of that stewardship. And honestly, I mean, I have to say my wife is an amazing woman, and, you know, she will knock me down to size if I need it.
You and me both, man.
Yeah.
I'm real curious as far as like how you got, well, you said, let me back up. You did make the comment as talking about your focus was on Jesus. Like your focus wasn't on necessarily, and correct me if I'm wrong, your gifts. Cause what I'm realizing is I'm very business minded. I'm self-driven. And when I was younger, I would say that I was self-promoting in my flesh. And what I've learned is, as I've laid down my gifts, like, you know, I was making the joke yesterday that, remember the wristbands, what would Jesus do?
Mm-hmm. They're back.
Yeah, they're okay. So I better get back. Man. I better get back with the
all
times.
The cool kids. All the cool kids are wearing WWJD now.
Okay, well, I'm definitely not in the cool crowd. I better go get me one.
Oh, look, no, I don't have one on. I'm saying like all the young cool college kids have all got them.
Okay,
like, this is a thing again. This is crazy.
This is hilarious. Okay,
so, not a bad question though.
Okay, so that being said, what I've noticed is like Jesus laid down his gift to the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And laid down his life. That was his gift to give. Mm-hmm. And because of that, he was brought up or raised up, right?
Mm-hmm.
That being said, so if we're to be like Christ, what I've been thinking about the last week, as I lay down my gift, whether it's music or podcasting, whatever I'm called to do, as I lay that down to serve others. Mm-hmm. And make that my purpose, then all of a sudden things just start to happen. And what I mean by that is like our podcast has exploded solely because it has nothing to do with me. Like I get to interview really cool people like you. I mean, I'm just being honest. Like I'm not really doing anything except having a conversation with you. But that being said, as I've laid that down, I've seen amazing things happen. Is that how it's been, do you feel like, for you? And I'm just trying to get confirmation of what I'm feeling, because I want people to realize, like, you don't have to promote yourself. As you seek Jesus and use your gift to serve people, like, doors just open up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I should say, when I said that about being 13 and just falling in love with Jesus, that was like, it was such a amazing season, because I was seeing things like I had never seen things before. I was reading scripture in a way that I had never read scripture before, because now the Holy Spirit was illuminating these things that were hidden from my eyes before. And so that was just my natural, like you're saying, it just naturally flowed out of all of that. And I just really want to fight to stay in that place of wonder where it doesn't become a job. It doesn't become something you just wake up and you do. I got to have my quiet time today. I got to spend time with God. Like I really want to fight to stay in a place of life where I wake up and I go, what am I going to see today? What is going to happen today when I get with God? What is he going to inspire me with from his word today? Just thinking about 2 Corinthians, where Paul says, as we look at Jesus, we go from glory to glory. It's an ever increasing glory, because we look with unveiled faces and we're transformed into more like him. And that's the goal of life. That has to be my goal. Everything else can just happen like God wants it to happen. But the greatest thing that I could do is just look at Jesus, be transformed by that, and do what he asked me to do. And that took me here. It took me to writing songs and leading worship and leading a team here at our church and building this church. I don't know where it's going to take somebody listening to this podcast, but I do know that you're going to go with the right person. If you look at Jesus, he's going to lead you to a phenomenal destination. You just have to be okay to open your hands, trust him.
Absolutely. That's awesome advice. Okay, so Kristian, along your journey, and these are I get the most feedback on this question. And what that is a story where, you kind of had a moment where it couldn't be worse than this type deal, or like just a hard time, right? But this is why I love these stories, because God always comes through. It's like being at the river with Moses, and God comes and parts it. So at the moment it looks like, oh my gosh, it can't be any worse than this. And then God just does something miraculous.
Yeah.
Do you have a story like that that's been a part of your journey?
I have a lot of stories like that.
Dude, bring them on, buddy. A lot of
stories like that. I mean, that is the journey, man. It's made up of high times and low times, for sure. The first thing that came to my mind when Passion City Church was starting a little over 9 years ago, my wife and I, we lived about an hour north of Atlanta, and the church was planting in Atlanta. And my wife, Carrie, and I felt really clearly pretty early on that God was asking us to leave where we were living an hour north and move into the city, and to leave behind a lot of these other opportunities that I had as a worship leader. I was kind of piecing together this, making a living. I was kind of piecing together. I would go and lead at this church, and then I'd go lead here, then I'd go lead at this other thing, and then I'd go lead here. And that kind of helped us pay the bills, and also just trying to fulfill this calling, in my life, whatever. And we heard really clearly God say, you need to lay all of that down. You need to put everything into Passion City Church. Go build this church, join with this team. So what it meant is that we were selling our house at the worst time to sell your house. It was
2007 and 8. Yes.
It was the worst time to sell a house. It meant leaving behind all the income we had to pay the bills. And it meant living in a city that we were like, we didn't know we would ever live in Atlanta. That just seems huge and untouchable. How are we going to find a place? Can we afford it? And we decided, thankfully, now I'm so happy we did it. We took the step of obedience, sold our house, took a huge hit on that, turned down all these other things we were doing, and we moved into the city. And I can't tell you how hard that was for us. And I can't tell you how deep the darkness was at some points, where there were moments crying out to God, going, what have you asked us to do? We have no money. We have no place to live. We're building this church, but we don't even have a building. We don't really know what the future is. Now here I am, 9+ years later, and we feel like this work of building the church has saved our lives. I mean, along with so many other people. So that's probably was the biggest crossroads my wife and I have stood at in our marriage. And I'm so glad we went with God, because to think of what we would have missed is terrifying. I mean, to think if we had decided to stay in our home and live this comfortable life, it's terrifying to me. And that's not hyperbole. It scares me to death that we almost missed what we're a part of now. So that was a real low. I would say it was a valley season, and it wasn't just like a couple months. It was like a couple years. I'm just curious,
where, obviously you heard the Lord, you jumped in and you did it. There had to be you did say there were some moments you're like, God, are you like, where was kind of a moment that you had some like light at the end of the tunnel, like some breakthrough where you're like, okay, I'm starting to see this now?
Well, there were a lot of moments along the way. I think one really specific way, it was just the provision of God, the way that we saw him provide for our family. We had just what we needed at just the right time, so many times, man. And that was just beautiful to watch. But I remember one time specifically, we have these Sundays at our church once a year called Above and Beyond Sunday. And it's when our church comes and we give to God above and beyond what we usually give, to build the house, to further the vision of this house and the gospel in the city. And Carrie and I both have been praying about, what do you want us to give? And we both got a number come back to us that
same number.
It was the same number, and it was preposterous. It was basically what it was going to do is it was going to set us back on our plans about a full year.
Okay.
And we were like, okay, here we go again. But like I said, we decided to take the step. We gave, and I'm so glad we did. I'm not kidding you. That week, in the next couple of days, we saw in our mailbox the exact amount what we had given to the church just a few days before that. And it was a miracle, And I don't say that to say, oh, look how generous we are, and look at this, whatever. But that's
but it was a step of faith, man.
Well, totally. But I think I just more say like that's how following Jesus is. That's just how the kingdom of God is. When you trust and give all back into His hands, you get to see stuff like that, and you go, "Hello, that's not about me. That's all about the provision of God," and that's been God's story all along. And again, I'm really glad that we didn't hold back.
You know what I love about those stories is because nobody else can take credit for them but God.
That's exactly right.
I mean, that's what I love about it. Like, you can't say, look what I did. I mean, you can say, yes, I was obedient and I gave.
Right.
But any of us can or can't do that. But only God can show up at the right time and do exactly what He did. And those are the things that I love. That's right. Well, and now in our marriage, and as we talk to people who are younger in their marriages, now for us, we don't hesitate. When God says go or do this, or we're like, all right, cool, that's fine. Even if it doesn't make sense, we're like, we're going to see something. Something's going to happen here. It's going to be amazing. And we are able to tell younger couples now too, like, don't miss this blessing, because there's blessing on the other side of your obedience. Amen to that. I told a friend one time he was struggling with an addiction. And it wasn't a big, it might have been like smoking or something. I don't remember exactly what it is. He was just like, I feel like God's telling me to stop. And I just remember telling him, I said, think of it like this. I said, I can't think of anywhere in the Bible or in my life that God has ever asked me or somebody else to lay something down because He wanted to give us something so much greater. Yeah. And so many times it's like, if I'm going to just use the analogy of money, it's like God wanting us to hand us $100 bill, but I'm so stuck with the $5 in my hand that I'm like, I don't want to give this up because it's the only $5 that I have. And God's like, no, I have something better to give you, but I need you to release your hand open so I can give you what I have for you. And that's in any area. I'm just using the analogy of money, but that's just any area. I mean, so many times I think we're closed-fisted, especially when we're young. Now that we're older, now that we're old, I'm going to say that I'm old. Now that I'm old and more wiser, I realize I'm like, dude, if I just open my hands and just release what I have, he has something amazing.
So true.
Okay. So Kristian, in what you do, I'm all about like strengths and weaknesses. What do you feel like what you do as far as Passion City Church and what you do? What do you feel like your biggest strength is?
I'm trying to think of how to say it. I think strength that God has given to me is to be able to see the people. And that's what I've loved so much about being in a church is leading people. And the church has really helped me in this, but when I stand on our stage in any room of our house and I look out at the people, God has really helped me not to see a mass of people or a big audience, but he's really given me eyes to see individual people and not like people I know, but like just remembering that there are people that have never been to church before. There are people who come to church every week. There are people in the room whose marriages are broken apart. There are people in the room who have kids who are running from God. There are people in the room who are struggling with all kinds of manner of things, in life. And that really influences the way that I lead. And it influences the songs that we choose. It influences the way that we talk to people. Even just the tone of our voice. People need to be able to see themselves in the way that we lead, in the way that we speak. And so not over-spiritualizing everything and using big church words that don't make it to the back of the room. I think that is something that God has really honed and developed in my heart over the past 9 years. One thing that I love to do when I'm not leading is go and stand in the very back of our auditorium, and I like to see what makes it all the way back there. Because the first 3 or 4 rows, right in front of the stage, they're all the people who were stoked to get up, pumped to come through the door. They know every word to every song. They know our language. They know the tone. It's the people who want to sit in the shadows and be anonymous, and those are the people that we need to be reaching out for. And so I love to stand in the back of our auditorium and watch for which words are making it all the way back here, which songs are making it all the way back here, which songs are not, which words are not. And it might sound kind of like in the weeds, but it really isn't. It's not for me. It really informs the way that we lead. So I think that's something that God has really allowed me to see.
I really appreciate your heart on that, because I think a lot of times we get caught up in the momentum of what's going on. And like you said, that there's people, I've had friends that tell me they go to big church, like where there's thousands and thousands of people, because they don't want to be noticed and they don't want to be involved. And ultimately that comes down as not having any accountability.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. And those are the people that, like you said, that need it the most, because they're obviously at a place in their life where they feel like they can't be maybe emotionally evolved, or they don't want to be seen. And they're the ones that need to be it's like Zacchaeus in the tree type deal. Like, hey, come down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So in what you do, what do you feel like your biggest weakness is?
I'm not good at planning ahead.
I'm just laughing because you're a musician, dude. Just when I hear that, my wife is probably the only like OCD musician I've ever met. Everybody else is just like, it'll all work out.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been this way, but I go more on instinct. I go more in the moment. I really like rehearsing because it makes us better, but I really don't know how something's going to go until I'm standing in the moment. And I let God lead me then. And there are things that we can plan and we should plan. And I like to plan. I need help planning, though. But I do like to plan ahead. And I believe that God leads us in the planning. So it's not just like, I'm in the moment. I'm spontaneous. I'm following the Spirit. You should do that. But leading up to that, you should go, hey, God, here I am a week before. What songs do you want us to sing? Yeah. What can you see that we can't see? And what's the flow here, And so there's wisdom in that, and I do that, but I've always been better just in the moment. But I need help. And thankfully, I have an amazing team that excels in that. So I can lean on those people and delegate to those people and go, help me remember to do this, help me to plan ahead. But that would be my weakness, I think. Okay.
And you know what I like, though, is you're aware of it. So obviously you've surrounded yourself with people that make up using their strengths. and your strength. So you guys, that's what makes you a team.
Oh, and my wife loves it. She loves that I don't like to play that. She's like, can you please just think further out than 5 minutes?
That is hilarious.
She's amazing though, because she's not like me. She loves to plan and to research, and so I lean on her for that a lot.
No, that's fine. I totally get it, because I'm like you. I'm just like in the moment. I wanted to see what God's going to do, and I hate planning. Mm-hmm. And like we go on vacation, my wife has like every hour scheduled, planned, where we're going, what we're doing. Right. And like I hate that, but at the same time, like as soon as I'm there, I love it because, well, I know what I'm going to do next, and if God does something in that moment that's planned, I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah, right. Bonus.
Yes, bonus, absolutely. So, okay, so Kristian, right now, what is the biggest thing going on in your life that you're excited about? Whether that's a new song, CD, music, like what do you have going on right now that we need to know about?
Well, I'll tell you, and I already talked about it a little bit, but I was reading in 2 Corinthians this morning about looking at the face of Jesus and increasing in glory or becoming more like Jesus every day, and realizing that there are levels to that like every day you can increase and the next day you can increase. That is blowing my heart up right now. If you want to know like the most like bleeding edge, that's what I'm thinking about at the moment. But so that's like blowing me up. But beyond that, we just had a new record release. So Passion just released a new record called Whole Heart, which came out, good grief. When did it come out? February 23rd. That's out, and it's new songs from Passion 2018. It's live record from the conference, and we are so stoked about it. And so already seeing just the power of these songs happen in our house and when we travel and all that. So that's happening. And then there's always so much exciting stuff happening at our church. Every week is kind of a new adventure. So, I'd say that's probably the big thing, for us happening right now. We have a conference coming up in May called Lift Conference, for creatives, the people who are creative in the church. And we're gearing up for that. Lots of stuff to look forward to. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's sort of all the new stuff that's coming.
Yeah, I do, because part of our show is just to highlight what God's doing in people's lives. So that's kind of where I was hitting at, was the Whole Heart CD.
Yeah.
Is coming out, because I want people. What I love about the Passion movement and the music is what you said at the beginning of the show before you ever were involved. It's the spirit behind it.
Oh my gosh.
And because there is just, I don't have the words. Like just when I think about it, like it just takes you into the courts of God and just in that throne room and just allows you to soak in the presence of Jesus.
Yeah.
And it's different than just music. I mean, we can listen to music. We can get emotionally excited. God created music. So, it's ups and there's downs and it's emotional, but it's different when that spirit behind it brings you into that presence and you're pouring yourself out and yet being ministered to.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right.
That's what I love about the music. It's just, is the spirit behind it and just bringing you into that place of worship.
Absolutely. And that is what I've loved. Like you said, I was not there at the beginning and kind of joined the Passion team later on in the movement. But from the time I've been involved to now, there hasn't been a real huge focus on making a record or releasing a record. It's always been about what is God doing at the conference, and if we can capture what God is doing, if we can capture those moments, those holy moments, then we're going to have something worth exporting to people. And I think that's what you're talking about. Is it's not just about, we have a record deadline, so we have to make a new record. It's like, no, God is doing something. Let's capture that and let that change people, and let that transform people. So I love that heart, and that's been there from the beginning, because that's Louis and Shelley's vision for this music. And from the very beginning, that was their vision. They're still executing that vision today.
I love it. Kristian, as we wrap up the show, there's one question that I always like to ask, and this will be fun because normally people prepare for this question. So since you're on the spot, so here's the question. This is my Back to the Future, a DeLorean question. So, okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
So if you get to go back to the younger you, what advice would you give yourself, knowing what you're going to go through? Nothing can change, but you're just going to give yourself like a motivational pep talk saying, all right, you need to know this because these things are going to happen, what would you tell yourself?
I think I would tell myself to buy Bitcoin. That's what I would tell myself. I would say, bro, you need to invest in Bitcoin immediately.
And you're like, what the heck is a Bitcoin? Like you chew on it or something? No, I know. You're so half your life.
You need to buy Amazon really low.
No kidding.
No. That would be pretty awesome, though, if you could go back and tell yourself to do that.
Well, that's what Marty McFly did in Back to... No, it wasn't Marty. Oh. It was the bully guy. I forgot. Biff did it. He went back and he played the lottery.
Yeah. No, that's right.
I forgot about that. You totally brought that out. So, yeah, Biff played horse racing in the lottery and got a bunch of money. So he took your advice.
See, there we go. Well, actually, maybe I just took Biff's advice.
Exactly.
But, man, if I could go back and tell myself one thing, I think it would be just relax. Just chill out. Because I think, my younger self, I wanted to have it all figured out. And I think everybody does at some level, especially when we're younger. We want to have it all figured out and know what the future looks like. But I think I would just go back and say, hey, man, there's a really beautiful path ahead for you. And what God has planned is better than what you have planned. And so just take each step as He lights it up, and you're going to get somewhere beautiful.
I love it. All right. So, Kristian, how do my guests get a hold of the music, Passion Church, everything that you guys have, or that you have mentioned today? How do we find you and get involved in the movement that you guys are creating?
You can find us on Instagram. We're Passion Music on Instagram. You can go to passioncitychurch.com and learn about everything we're doing as a church. 268generation.com is our conference website, and that has everything on there. You can find Passion 268 on Instagram too. But that would be a really great place to find everything that's going on.
Awesome, man. Well, Kristian, if you would hold on just a second, I do want to tell you, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. Absolutely. And our guests, man. It's totally been an honor. And if you would hold on as I wrap this up.
Absolutely.
Roar Nation, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We just love you guys. We love what God is doing. I hope that we have encouraged you to find passion, what God has for you. As always, if you need help with that, you can jump on our website for our book, DIY Remodel Your Life. We have that to help you find. You can reach out to us on Instagram or Facebook. And we are absolutely here to support you on your journey to get you where God has your promised land, what He has for you. So love y'all. And remember, be real, be authentic, and be you. God bless.
That's all for this episode of Are You Real? Finding the Authentic You. Be sure to go to areyoureal.org for your free questionnaire to identify your gifts and talents and how you can use them to help people become leaders and catapult them into their destiny to help others become the leaders of tomorrow. We appreciate you spending your time with us and look forward to helping you reach out and revolutionize next time on Are You Real? Finding the Authentic You.